Hey, welcome to my channel. So today we're continuing our verse-by-verse study of Romans. We're in Romans chapter 3, 28 through 31. I'm going to stop at 31 because I want to use Romans chapter 4 on another video. I want to start with another video because Paul is going to address a completely different topic in 4, so I don't want to bleed 3 into 4 in one study. So in our journey to a stronger relationship with Christ, there's an important question we have to ask ourselves. Do I know the Bible? Do I truly understand the Bible? Or do I only know what my teachers have told me about the Bible, right? Do I take time to read and digest and truly know and be in the Word? Or do I only know what I know from a 20 to 30 minute sermon every Sunday, or maybe what I hear from neighbors or other people? And having the answer or the ability to answer this question is why verse-by-verse Bible studies are so important. Understanding what a passage or a verse truly means helps you to discern when you're being deceived or manipulated. And there are many well-intentioned pastors today who misinterpret Bible verses to satisfy a specific agenda. And there are many false teachers today who misinterpret Bible verses because they're deceiving you into believing a false doctrine. One of the most obvious ways this is accomplished is through the tithe. So a lot of churches that I've been to use the Old Testament incorrectly to justify tithing. And these are just churches I've been to. I'm not talking, I don't know what churches you've been to. And tithing is not meant for Gentiles, right? The Old Testament is extremely important in understanding Christianity and for understanding the New Testament, but it is meant and written for the Jews. Every command in the Old Testament is written for the Jews. That's why the Mosaic Law is called the Old Covenant. Tithing is a law under the Old Covenant, and it is not meant for us, right? Jesus mentions tithing twice in the New Testament or the New Covenant, and both times he's addressing a Jewish audience, right? Now, Jesus calls us to be generous. He wants us to be generous, right? He wants us to be willingly generous. He even calls us to be extremely generous. And our churches rely on generosity. But tithing isn't a biblical law or a concept for Gentiles. Churches often misuse the tithe, or they often tithe shame us because they rely on our generosity to function, right? Your church is a building. Your pastor, your associate pastor, the kids pastor, the janitor, these are all people who rely on income to survive, right? Your pastor's not a volunteer. He's not working 50, 60 hours as a volunteer, right? He deserves to be paid for his time and for what he does, and that's what the tithe, that's what your generosity does, right? The building has lights. The building has air conditioning and heat, right? The building has this, the building has that. That all costs money. Plus, if you call a specific church or an online ministry your home, you should do everything in your power to provide for that home. Now, if you go to, let's also understand and know that tithe just means 10%, right? But you can give 1%, 12%, 8%, 15%, right? There's nothing in the New Testament that says you have to give 10%. Tithe is just the most convenient word, right? It's been around for 2,000 years, so it's just easy. It's 10%. It's an easy number, right? It's an easy number to calculate. So if you go to your church and your pastor says, hey, it's time for the tithes and offerings, and that's it, you pass around the bucket or you take out your phone and give on your app, you're great. But if you go to your church and your pastor says, hey, it's time for tithes and offerings, and then he quotes some Old Testament law to back that up, then you need to have questions, right? You need to talk to your lead pastor about why he believes we should follow the Old Testament law of tithing and not the other 612 laws in the Old Testament. So this is why we need to understand the Bible. Romans 3:28 refutes almost every unbiblical gospel in a way that's easily understood, right? Every false gospel has common elements that align with other false gospels as well as the true gospel. Typically, a false gospel will borrow passages and verses from the Bible and modify them to satisfy an agenda, right? In the case of Mormonism, Joseph Smith used the entire Bible, but added verses to Genesis and Exodus to justify his claim that he was the Messiah, or at least a prophet. This is why it's easy to be deceived by a false gospel. This refutation will also include salvation through Acts. The first 3 chapters of Romans have been all about salvation through grace, right? Paul has been telling the Jews that following the law isn't going to save them because no man can follow the law perfectly. Every man will break the law, and once the law is broken, it's broken, right? The law was not meant to save. It was meant to guide and direct, right? It was also never meant as a condition to sustain or maintain salvation, right? Once you truly give your heart to Christ, once you surrender to your life to him, you're saved. So Romans 3:28, for we hold that one is justified by faith apart from works of the law. So this addresses what I just previously stated. You're not justified by faith and then works, and you're not justified by only works. In Jehovah's Witness theology, you're justified by faith and by following a couple of laws that they've adopted from the Bible. Not all 613 laws, just the ones that they feel best satisfies their agenda. And some of their laws are also just made up. They're not even biblical. In Mormon theology, you're justified after living a life of works and following laws. No faith, just works. And much like the JWs, they also make up their own non-biblical rules. In Islamic theology, you're just hoping to be good enough, and you're depending on the judgment of Allah about whether he wants to save you, right? So you're basically depending on what kind of day Allah is having, right? What kind of mood he's in. Does he really feel like saving you today? In Catholic theology, you're justified by a mixture of grace and works. And Paul is clearly telling us that we are justified by faith apart from works, right? Not just by one or the other or by a mixture. It's faith and faith alone. And there are some Catholics who are very nuanced in their theology, and they'll say you're saved by faith plus works. But works are something that you do willingly as a result of faith and salvation. Works, it's not like a list of chores, right? You don't have faith and then you have a list of honeydews that you need to follow for the rest of your life to maintain that salvation, right? You're saved just by faith. And then you do works, right? You get saved, and as a result of Christ being present in your life and the Holy Spirit taking up residence in your body, you do works out of the joy that that salvation brings. Not because it's necessary, but because you want to do it, right? You want people to know the grace and glory of God, so you show them through acts of generosity, right? Works are enabled by God's grace. They are not necessary to earn his grace. And Paul clearly states in Romans that it's grace or works, but it's not both, right? So you either believe that faith brings salvation or you believe that works bring salvation. But Paul clearly tells us that it's not both. So if you have to choose, please, please, please pick faith. Now, if you're a member of any of the denominations I mentioned, you might also say that yours doesn't follow the Old Covenant laws, right? They're not subject to the refutations of Romans 3:28. You're saved by faith apart from works of the law, and we don't follow the law. Yes, but you're following someone's law, and it may not be a biblical law. However, most of them are using deeds of the law. In Mormonism, you have to love God, love others, and keep your vows. Those are Mosaic laws. Those are deeds of the law, right? They're keeping a couple of the laws, getting rid of the rest, and then stating that that's sufficient. But it's not. It wasn't sufficient for the Jews, so why would it be enough for us? These denominations use an edited version of the law, or better yet, they cut and paste the laws into their theology, and then they claim that they're not under the Old Testament, right? We're under this law. That's not the Mosaic Law. But it is, right? The point of the Mosaic Law was that you had to follow all 613 laws to be saved, and everyone failed, right? Jesus came to say, hey, you don't need the law for salvation. You just need my grace. And any mixture of faith and works is refuted because were justified by faith apart from works of the law. So verse 29 and 30, or is God the God of Jews only? Is he not the God of Gentiles also? Yes, of Gentiles also, since God is one, who will justify the circumcised by faith and uncircumcised through faith. So when you're reading through Paul's letters, you have to try and get into his mindset, right? You have to try and think like Paul, not assuming or looking too hard into anything, but rather by asking questions, right? Why did he bring this up, or why did he bring that up? Verse 29 and 30 are in response to the idea that if righteousness only comes through the law, then it's only available to the Jews, right? The only people who could be saved throughout history until the time of Jesus were Jews. Now, because of his resurrection, it's available to everyone. Before that, only the Jews could be saved because the law was only available to them. Now, Paul is asking his Jewish followers, isn't God the God of the Jews and Gentiles? Doesn't he care about all people? Do you think he only provided a way of salvation for the Jews? Don't you think he cares about the Gentiles? There were some Jews in the first century who honestly believed that Gentiles were created to fuel the fires of hell. Of course, that's not true. Paul is telling them that God cares for Gentiles as well. And he ends this line of thinking with verse 30 as he talks about God justifying the circumcised, the Jews, and the uncircumcised, the Greeks, through faith. And this might clarify and help us understand the true meaning of Romans 1:17. For in it the righteousness of God is revealed from faith to faith. From faith, the Jews, to faith, the Greeks. But before that, verse 16 tells us to the Jew first and also to the Greek. So here it is telling us circumcised, the Jews, and uncircumcised, the Greeks, by faith. The first faith may be the Jew and the second faith may be the Gentile. It's just a guess, but all people are saved by faith. And to modern Christians, this isn't a relevant question, but to the first century Jew, it was very important. However, in this timeline, in 2022, many people believe that God only cares about a small group of white European people, right? And now, that's the part of the world where Christianity flourished. Very true, Christianity flourished in Europe, but that's not how it is now, right? The Bible tells us that God so loved the world, not God so loved the Jew or God so loved the white European. No, God so loved the world. And this is one of the reasons why Christianity has spread so far, so wide, and so quickly. There's no other religion on earth that has crossed every known boundary: age, race, culture, ethnicity, rich, poor, to be accepted. Everywhere people go, the gospel goes with them. The number of Christians in China far surpasses the number of believers in the United States and Europe. God so loved the world, and we witness the results of that in it being a worldwide religion. Not only that, but it's survived for over 2,000 years. So anyone who criticizes Christianity as a white European religion is just ignorant of the blatant and obvious facts. If you want a white European religion, you got to look somewhere else. And no other religion can make this boast, right? It's not just about one culture. God cares about the Jews and the Gentiles. He cares about everyone. So verse 31, do we not overthrow the law by this faith? By no means. On the contrary, we uphold the law. Now that we've established that God cares about the Jews and Gentiles, the next question is, what about the law? What is the Gentile relationship to the law? Is the law null and void for me? Are we not under the law? No, the law was a standard. And by having faith in Jesus, we established the standard because Jesus met the standard. Jesus is the key. And there are three general misunderstandings about the law. Number one, the law saves you through obedience. Paul has clearly refuted this, right? The experience of the Israelites refuses this. Throughout the Old Testament, they failed time and time again because they couldn't follow the law. Two, the law says nothing to us. It's just a placeholder. The Old Testament laws are full of wonderful truths, right? They are truths that we can apply to our life today. It doesn't mean we have to pretend we're Jews who were under the law, but we use it to learn from God and from the laws he gave to his people. Now, some are moral truths, Others define human civility, others establish communal laws, and some are pictorial truths of Christ. The law isn't canceled or irrelevant. It's a useful tool for learning and developing a relationship with God. 3. The law doesn't govern all believers in Jesus today. The New Testament gives us the way that believers should view the Old Testament law, and it is not so that these laws directly govern us. Most people who say we should be under the law are very selective about which laws we should follow and which laws we shouldn't follow. The laws they believe we should follow often establish a doctrine they've designed for themselves. And Paul's focus is how the law relates to salvation. It was given to govern Israel, but how does it relate to us getting saved? We don't dismiss the law, we establish it. And Jesus himself even made this clear. Matthew 5:17. Do not think I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. So Paul isn't finished with this topic either. He's going to offer more support from the Old Testament, talking about how the law gives us Christ, right? How the books of the Old Testament point to Christ. And this is great advice for witnessing to Jews. Romans 4 is going to give us great advice on how to witness to Jews or anyone who is familiar with the Old Testament. Anyone who believes in salvation by works instead of salvation by faith. Thank you for watching this video. I hope it's encouraging to you. Have a blessed day.